The last thing my father ever said to me was, "You'll never amount to anything." Part 1. Rock bottom is louder when it's your own blood laughing. I still remember the way the silverware clinked when I stood up from the dinner table. The dining room was warm, too warm. My palms were sweating, heart racing, not from fear, but because I'd spent the entire day rehearsing what I was about to say. I'd taken a risk, a big one, quitting my job at Westfield Accounting to start my own AI-powered finance app. I had no money, no team, just a sketchbook of algorithms, sleepless nights, and the belief that if I didn't jump now, I'd die in the waiting room of my own life. It was Thanksgiving. My parents, my brother, my aunt and uncle, cousins, everyone was there. It was supposed to be a moment of closeness. Instead, I got silence when I shared my dream. Then came the laughter. "You quit your job?" My older brother, Patrick, nearly spat out his wine. "To build an app? Jesus, Ryan!" Dad leaned back in his chair, arms folded, face already locked in disappointment. "Are you serious? You had health insurance, a steady paycheck. You think this world's going to reward you for daydreaming?" "I believe in this," I said quietly. Mum looked down at her plate, embarrassed. "Sweetheart, not everyone is meant to be special." That one stung. Not just because of the words, but the way she said them, like a soft apology for giving birth to someone foolish. Patrick chuckled. "You're not a Zuckerberg, man. You're not even a Steve from IT. Laughter again, a little louder this time. And when I looked around that table, the people who helped raise me, who held me when I was sick, cheered my little league games. All I saw were smirks and sideways glances. "Ryan," Dad said, cutting through it all. "Grow up. You're not a founder. You're a flake, and you're going to come crawling back when the money runs out." I didn't respond. I just stood there, swallowed the lump in my throat, and left. I drove home in silence. No music, no heat, just the sound of the road, and my own heartbeat screaming, "Don't cry yet." I lived in a shoebox apartment above a laundromat. My mattress was on the floor. My desk was an overturned shipping crate. The window let in more cold than light. But none of that mattered, because I had one thing no one at that dinner table had: conviction. I woke up every morning at 5 a.m. and coded till midnight. I studied behavioral finance, neural networks, UI, UX, every skill I needed to build the product myself. I lived off canned beans, expired cereal, and vending machine coffee. I lost weight. My skin broke out. I forgot what weekends were. And worst of all, no one believed in me. No calls, no texts. My father sent me a job listing for an accounting role twice a week. Mum sent praying for you messages that felt more like obituaries. I pitched to 22 investors, got rejected by 21. One of them actually laughed. "This won't scale," he said. "You're not the guy people bet on." But I kept going, because the idea wouldn't leave me. Because I knew I was building something that mattered. Because I couldn't go back to that table. Then, a miracle. Investor number 23 was a woman named Kalia Tien, a fintech visionary who made her first billion by the time she was 32. She saw the prototype, sat in silence, then said, "This is better than half the Series A pitches I've seen this year. You built this alone?" I nodded. She leaned forward. "How much are you asking for?" I nearly choked. $150,000? She laughed, not cruelly, but in awe. "I'll wire you $500,000 tonight, and I'll bring friends." That night I cried into a bowl of stale rice and felt like I was breathing for the first time in months. I built a team. We launched the beta 6 months later. It exploded. People called it the ChatGPT of finance. Users went from 200 to 2 million. We got offers. Millions, then tens of millions. I turned them down. I wanted to walk into that dinner again, not as Ryan the failure, but as the man who proved them all wrong. Part 2. The dinner table never looked so small. The invitation came from my mother 2 weeks before Christmas. "Just a small family dinner," the text read. "Would love to see you." No apology. No mention of Thanksgiving. No, "How have you been?" Just an assumption I'd quietly fall back in line like always. I stared at the screen for a while. Then I replied, "Sure, I'll bring some guests." The day before the dinner, I closed a $15 million partnership with one of the top banks in Asia. Our valuation crossed $200 million. Reporters were calling me the quiet storm of fintech. But I didn't care about headlines. I cared about what was coming tomorrow. I called Kalia. "You free for a strange night?" She laughed. "Let me guess. Family dinner?" "Exactly. Want me to show up in a Rolls or a helicopter?" "Surprise me." She didn't come alone. She brought 4 others. People who had backed me, mentored me, defended me when I was just a guy with an idea and a cracked laptop screen. There was David Cho, founder of 3 unicorns and board member of Google AI, Maya Desai, Wall Street's most feared angel investor, Andre de Leon, real estate mogul, and Kalia, of course, wearing a midnight black coat and enough quiet power to drain the room of oxygen. We didn't come in loud, we didn't need to. My parents' house hadn't changed much, the same beige walls, the same dusty family photos, but the moment I stepped inside, everything felt smaller, like the ceilings had dropped and the walls had moved in, or maybe I had just grown. Patrick opened the door, his eyes went wide. "Ryan, who are these people?" "Friends," I said calmly, stepping inside. Kalia offered a soft smile. "Thank you for having us." Patrick moved out of the way like a man watching royalty enter his childhood treehouse. He didn't even speak again, just stared. In the dining room, Dad stood up, already frowning. Mum blinked like she'd seen a ghost. My uncle, who once told me I'd always be the family cautionary tale, stood there with his mouth slightly open, frozen mid-chew. I pulled out a chair and sat down. "Hope we're not late," I said, placing a wine bottle on the table. "We just came from a board meeting, something about revolutionizing the global finance space. You know, the usual." No one laughed. No one even breathed. I looked at Dad. "Nice tie, still working at Brindle Insurance?" His jaw twitched. "I am." I nodded. "Good, steady job." Dinner was awkward. No one knew what to say. Maya complimented the roast. David asked my cousin about college. Kalia smiled like she knew exactly what kind of power she held. And how beautifully uncomfortable she could make this entire room by simply existing. And then Patrick broke the silence. "So, what exactly do you do again?" I turned to him slowly. "You know that app that's been all over the news? The one Wall Street's freaking out over?" He nodded. "Yeah, that's yours. I wrote the first line of code in my apartment, remember? The one you said looked like a drug den." His face flushed. "Wow," Mum finally said, voice trembling. "I didn't realize things had gone so well for you." "They didn't," I said. "They went better." After dinner, Dad walked me to the door. The rest of the group waited by the curb as Kalia's black S-Class pulled up, driver waiting. He looked at me like he didn't know who I was anymore, like maybe the insult had turned into prophecy, just in reverse. "I didn't mean what I said back then," he muttered. "Yes, you did," I said softly. "And it's okay, I needed you to." He looked away, ashamed. "I guess I was just trying to protect you." I smiled faintly. "No, you were trying to limit me." He had nothing to say to that. I stepped into the cold night where the stars were sharp and clear. Kalia held the door open. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded. "I just buried something." In the car, David passed me a glass of champagne. No one spoke about the dinner. No one needed to. But as we pulled away from the house, I looked back once. Not in sadness, not even in triumph, just in peace. Because for the first time, I didn't need anything from them. Part 3. I didn't just prove them wrong. I built what they couldn't even dream of. 3 months after the dinner, I bought the building my father's insurance firm leased its offices from. It wasn't revenge, it was poetry. The kind of poetry that doesn't need to be read aloud. It just exists, undeniable and permanent. I never kicked them out, never raised the rent. I didn't need to. Just knowing I could was enough. Power wasn't in the action anymore. It was in the restraint. My name was in magazines now. Forbes 30 under 30. Wired's Disruptors to Watch. Fast Company's cover, the silent genius who changed personal finance. The same people who said no to my early pitches were now emailing, DMing, asking for meetings, interviews, opportunities. One even offered to buy the company. The same man who once told me I wasn't the guy people bet on. I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on scaling the app, expanding into education. I launched a free program to teach underserved teens how to manage money, code apps, and pitch ideas. I funded it myself. I visited schools. I shook hands with kids who reminded me of me, scared, ignored, dreaming. One boy, Marcus, came up to me after a workshop. "You were poor too?" he asked, wide-eyed. I smiled. "Very." He looked at the screen where my app was running and whispered, "I want to build something too." And in that moment, I felt something I hadn't felt at that Thanksgiving dinner or even the night of the $15 million deal. I felt whole. My family tried to re-enter my life in small, awkward ways. Mum started sending recipes and old photos with "Remember this" captions. Patrick followed me on Instagram and liked every post. Dad sent me a book once, The Art of War, with a sticky note that read, "Proud." Took me a while to see it. I read the note 3 times, then put it in a drawer and left the book on a park bench. I wasn't bitter. I just didn't need their validation anymore. The wound had become a scar, not gone, but no longer bleeding. The press started calling me a mystery. They said I didn't party, didn't brag, didn't crash Lambos or post jet photos. They wondered why I stayed quiet, private, calm, but what they didn't see was that I didn't need noise. My silence wasn't emptiness, it was victory. A year after that Thanksgiving, I threw my own dinner, not at my parents' house, but at a glass-walled rooftop in Manhattan. I invited my team, my mentors, my early believers, Marcus and his mum, Kalia, Maya, David, every person who bet on me, even when I was just a name no one respected. I stood at the head of the table and looked around. There was laughter, real laughter, glasses clinking, people glowing from the inside out. I raised my glass. To risk, to belief, and to building what they can't even imagine. They cheered, and for the first time, I didn't feel like the outcast. I felt like the architect. Later that night, alone on the balcony, I pulled out my phone and scrolled through old messages, the ones from when I was cold, starving, scared, the rejections, the job listings, the prayers disguised as pity. I deleted them all. Then I opened a blank note and wrote 3 words. I made it.